Hi, today I want to talk to you about some new products from CMG, CoFlow and CoFlow-X. So what is CoFlow? Well, CoFlow provides an integrated multi-user, multi-reservoir and production environment and takes you all the way from your subsurface geological reservoir model all the way through your pipes, your surface network to a delivery facility. So we cover that whole integrated reservoir to surface environment. What is CoFlow-X? Well, CoFlow-X allows you to replace the in situ reservoir simulator that is part of the CoFlow product with some external simulator. In this case, we're looking at IMEX, GEMers, your familiar CMG reservoir simulators that you'll already be using. So you get all the great surface facilities and equipment modeling of CoFlow, coupled to the functionality and speed of CMG's reservoir simulators. So what does CoFlow-X provide? Well, CoFlow-X provides one company and a consistent set of products to span the whole reservoir engineering to production engineering workflow. So you no longer need to worry about, I have a problem in my model, do I go to company X or do I go to company Y to sort this out? I just go to company CMG and they'll sort it all out for me. The other great thing about this product is it uniquely provides a consistent fluid model all the way from the reservoir or the multiple reservoirs through their wells, all the way through the surface network to the plant. And this provides some fantastic functionality that you may not have in your current systems, which provide for multiple vendors, and you may end up with a discontinuity as you move from reservoirs to the production engineering side as the fluid models don't match up. It also provides flexibility. You have, for very complex detailed models, you can run CoFlow with its inherent reservoir simulator fully coupled for detail in these difficult situations. Or you can run more loosely coupled with IMEX, GEM or stars to allow you to access the advanced reservoir requirements in those reservoir simulators, or just for speed purposes as the more loosely coupled environment runs slightly faster. So in CoFlow-X, what does it provide? It provides the center of your integrated CMG world. You have CoFlow providing you all the surface network and fluid mixing capabilities. You have Builder, which is your familiar graphical user interface that you'll have been using to build your IMEX, GEM or stars models currently. You also have cEdit, which provides smart text editing of your simulator keyword files for those advanced users who don't want to go through a graphical interface and just want to edit the data sets directly themselves. And you also have the results product, which allows you to analyze your data for reservoir performance insights and understanding what's happening in your reservoir simulation models. So if I come out of our presentation now, and I will go through a demonstration of how all this integrated system works. So if I start up with our CoFlow product, well, actually, I'll start up with our launcher and just introduce you to our two reservoirs that we're going to show you. We have two reservoirs here, the carbonate reservoir and a sandstone reservoir. These are your standard DAT files. And if I drag one of these into Builder, we can see the model has loaded into Builder, and it's just the standard graphical user interface that you'll have been used to all of these years. If we just have a quick look, we can just see our carbonate reservoir here. We have about 10 wells situated in the structure, and we can see there's a couple of faults there. So our standard 3D image of one of the reservoirs we're trying to load. Again, I can quickly look through some of the plots that you'll be familiar with within our Builder environment. And it's all exactly the same and as you would have been used to just dealing with any of our simulators, IMEX, GEM and stars. So I'll just exit out of this just now. So we have our two reservoirs that I've previously built, and now I want to integrate these into a surface network model. So for this, I'll come into our CoFlow product. And I'll just pick a study that I've already previously created. And here you see the CoFlow interface. And I have a study with a side study over here, a PVT tuning study. The study that I'm going to work with, or I'm going to integrate with my reservoir models, is this anemone wells and facility study. And as you saw, the reservoir models are just our standard IMEX, GEM, or STARS models. So within the CoFlow facility, all I need to do is connect the facility into our reservoir system via the wells and provide a fluid description for that facility that's consistent with our reservoir model. So here you can see there is no geology described. I have certain fluids described, the carbonate fluid for our carbonate reservoir, the sandstone for our sandstone reservoir, and we'll look later on at this mixed model that will essentially provide the PVT for the combination of those two fluid systems within our surface network. As I come down here, I can see we have wells for the carbonate and sandstone reservoirs, and we have facilities for the carbonate and sandstone. And we also have an integrated facility where we're combining the two of these together, essentially to some form of delivery point. So if I have a look at these wells, and I go into the carbonate section, I can click on define wells, and I can see the wells that have already been previously defined for me. We can see the carbonate wells here, certain injectors in blue here, and certain producers in red. And I can see essentially a temperature profile, and these wells are essentially vertical wells, so this is the trajectory of the wells. And there's essentially 10 wells in my carbonate reservoir. And if I go into my sandstone reservoir, click on the same thing, I can see there's 7 wells, 7 producers here in my sandstone reservoirs. They're all just essentially vertical wells. If I come into the perforations and equipment, I can also see here a description of the wells I saw in my carbonate reservoir, but I can click on any of these devices, my tubing string, and see what specifications for my tubing string is and my perforations, and decide what I want to specify for my perforations here that be attached into my reservoir simulation model. And again, we'll have the same for my sandstone wells. As I come up to my facility, I can see I have a carbonate facility, and I come here to create the production facility, and we can inspect what's already been previously created for this demonstration. And I can see we have those wells that I saw in my well section, these carbonate wells, but these are all the production wells. Essentially, the injection wells are not being described in this particular facility. They're feeding into pipes. If I click on a pipe here, and I just click on add edit to see what's in the pipe segment, I can essentially see the trajectory of this pipe, the ambient temperature of the pipe, and the correlations I'm using within this pipe to calculate the pressure drawdowns. I can see these are coming through some valves, going to a gathering center, coming to a liquid riser. Again, if I click on this, I can see a description of that liquid riser that's already been entered. You can see the trajectory of that riser taking us from the subsurface to the surface, and the temperature profile that goes along with this, along again with the correlations used to calculate the pressure drops along this riser system here. So this describes a section of the facility related to our carbonate reservoir. Again, we have a similar facility. I go in here and we can look at our sandstone facility. And here we have the sandstone wells, all 7 producers going into pipes and feeding it eventually into a network outlet. The 2 network outlets from our carbonate and sandstone are going into this integrated facility. And here I can see what that integrated facility looks like. So we have our carbonate network, our sandstone network, all feeding into a gathering center, going into a 3-phase separator. We're essentially separating out oil and water. Gas is going to a distributor. That gas goes essentially to flare or sales, and part of that gas gets recycled into the 3 injectors in our carbonate reservoir through essentially 3 compressors here, and we have a description of those compressors that we can fill out and change and alter through here. So in this system, we have both reservoir systems feeding into our 2 separate networks, and then feeding into a combined system through here. Now what I can see here is the fluid model in this system is the carbonate plus sandstone K value. And this is one of the unique capabilities within the CoFlow network system, is I have unique PVT properties for each of these networks here that are related to the fluids coming out of the reservoirs, but then they have to be mixed in this gathering center, and we have to use a consistent set of PVT through this system here before it gets fed back into our carbonate reservoirs. So if I then go back to the PVT description, we can see we have fluids described here for the carbonate sandstone. These are essentially copied directly out of our reservoir simulation models, and then we come up with a combined model for that combined facilities. Now I'll just pop over here into the separate PVT tuning, which shows an example of our carbonate black oil fluid. And I can see these boxes are no longer green because I haven't run this model. These are essentially prior raw data that I've put in here to show you how we go and generate some of this black oil data for the facilities. So if I come into the black oil properties, we can just see a simple oil, gas, and water description. I come into the PVT data. This essentially is a saturated curve that's coming out of our reservoir simulation model, again, with all the undersaturated lines that are popping out of it. If I come into my black oil matching, I can see these visually. So here I can see the PVT data points that we've just looked at, and I can have a look at several plots here, the PVT data points here, and all of these other lines represent correlations that I want to tune to match this PVT data. So very, very simply, I can just click on auto match over here, bang, I get a match to my data, and I can flick through the plots and see how good those correlations are matching to my data. So all of this is done automatically for you, and these correlations are used in the surface facilities for calculating all the pressure and temperature changes and the reaction on the fluids within that system. Then that can also feed in to the integrated system later on. I can just cancel this because we've already done it in the study that I was looking at here. So if I come into the carbonate fluid, I come into black oil matching, I can see we already have our match curves sitting here ready to go. So essentially, everything is set up in this CoFlow model. I have the fluids, I have the wells, and I have the facilities. So essentially, I can exit out of here. So I have my reservoir models, which are essentially IMEX models. We have carbonate and sandstone reservoirs here. I have the CoFlow model that I've just shown you. So let's go to CoFlow-X and see how all this looks as an integrated environment. So if I open the project that contains that data and I maximize it, we can see here it's very simple. We have CoFlow-X sitting in the middle, we have CoFlow sitting on the left, and we have our reservoirs, both IMEX reservoirs, sitting on the right, and we have some monitoring capabilities sitting down here. All of these relate to the surface tab, or the top tabs that we have along our window here. So if I click on surface network, we essentially go to the surface network tab, and I can click in CoFlow, select the study, and we can see this is a study I've just been showing you earlier in the demonstration with the fluids, the wells, and the surface facilities. So we can see all the wells are registered from that CoFlow model here. We have our carbonate wells, we have our sandstone wells, injectors and producers. If I go to the reservoir section, I can see we have our carbonate reservoir with the carbonate wells listed here. I click on the sandstone reservoir and we have the sandstone reservoir wells listed here. I come across to the well coupling, and I've already done this previously, but the well names would appear here in the reservoirs, and essentially any uncoupled wells would appear over here, and I can manually couple the reservoir with the CoFlow network across the system. But as long as the wells are consistently named, it will automatically populate up here, and we can see that essentially the reservoir name, carb well 1, is essentially associated with the carb well 1 CoFlow well name. And we've made that connection in this system here. If I go back to the reservoir section, I can see there's a couple of other elements to help me within CoFlow-X. I can fire up Builder from here and look at the reservoirs as we did earlier, or I can open up CEdit and text edit those reservoirs to make any alterations. So I'm now in CEdit. I can see the familiar text file that I would have been used to seeing in our IMEX model. I come down to the component properties to my PVT section, and we can see here essentially the PVT that was represented both in our CoFlow surface network model and also in my reservoir and builder representation of this system here. And it's very easy for me in CEdit to come in here and make certain changes. Come into the well and recurrent section, I can see this is my sandstone well 1. It's a producer. I have the perforations and information listed here as I'd expect. So I can edit this system. If I close, I can edit this system in CEdit, or I can edit this system in Builder for either of those reservoirs and make changes to the reservoir models that are feeding into this overall coupled network with CoFlow. So then when I've completed all this, essentially I just go to the CoFlow-X engine and I can just press start. I've selected a start time and an end time here, and it just will run basically coupling itself here on a 60-day frequency. So every 60 days, we'll do a message passing between the systems and make sure the surface network and the reservoirs are following each other exactly at those points. So when I press start, we can then go to the monitoring, and as you can see, we have certain log information here for CoFlow-X. For our carbonate reservoir, you can see it's already been completed, really just in a few minutes. For sandstone reservoir, we have the same here, and you can see the standard log file that you would see within our IMEX run. When the system's running, we can also monitor the running of this coupled system by coming to the time series here. And this essentially allows you to monitor your reservoirs as the system is running along. And I can pick whatever wells I'm interested in here and whatever properties I just want to monitor as I go along. Here's a fixed oil rate, a stock tank gas rate. We can look at our bottom hole flowing rates, our bottom hole pressures, and so on for any of the wells that we might be interested in. We can also look at the data that's being exchanged between CoFlow and the sandstone reservoir or carbonate reservoir. And here we've got standard IPR curves and set points. Again, at time 0, it's not so interesting, but if we go to our first synchronization point at 60 days, we can see the set point sitting on our IPR curve, telling us how much oil and gas we're expected to be producing at that time. We can also see here, there's one other icon, which is our results icon. And if we want to go into more detailed analysis, once the reservoir simulation is finished, I can pop in here into our results program and go and do that. So I'm just going to select all the reservoirs and display both of them. And here we have results starting up. So hopefully you'll also be familiar with results. I can pop in here and just show you the carbonate reservoir that you saw earlier. And this is the reservoir that you'd be familiar with, the same structure, the carbonate wells sitting there. I can click on the sandstone reservoir and see a similar sort of image with the sandstone wells, similar sort of structure. I can then go and I've got access to all of the facilities for post-processing my IMEX results that I would usually have access to. So I can go to, say, oil rate for my group, just have a look, essentially a line plot here, looking at the oil rates. I can go through my individual well plots. Again, just look at the carbonate wells, flick through, see how these appear. Come down to my sandstone reservoir, do something similar. And I can just exit out of here. So within CoFlow-X, we have essentially a system that becomes the center of your CMG integrated asset modeling environment, providing all the surface network capabilities of CoFlow and all the great reservoir simulation capabilities of, in this case, IMEX, but also GEM and STARS. So hopefully this has provided you a nice introduction to the CMG's integrated asset environment modeling workflow, and hopefully you'll be able to try this out yourself at some future time. Thank you very much.